Welcome, data enthusiasts. Today's conversation was with Michael Soucek. He is VP of Data at BuildingMinds in Berlin. BuildingMinds, the real estate portfolio management business, they're focused on sustainability. They're backed with data science and machine learning solutions for their clients. Previously, Michael was head of data science across DACH in the consulting world. So he knows a thing or two about the reality of AI adoption across myriad business types, large and small. So today we talked about the understanding of those realities of business leaders. We talked about how businesses can actually bridge the gap between the reality and idealism. We also talked about data science and how data science teams can fit into organization structures, or how they best fit into organization structures. We also talked about the risks of full adoption and about a future potential state of AI adoption. There's a lot to take in, and he's a very passionate guy. We got carried away with the time, and it was well worth it. So enjoy the pod. The current state of business leadership's understanding, and I mean the real understanding of artificial intelligence, how they can adopt it, how they can use it, how valuable it is. What do you perceive this current state of business leadership's understanding?
So I think overall is compared to many other technologies is actually pretty okay. So that's at least my impression. But if I need to summarize it, it's still a little bit, same, but different. This is one of the things which we see with many technologies. It becomes a hype, and then everyone is trying to do something with that. And kind of, if you're a business leader, you do not really go deep into technology itself. You're just interested in the actual business impact. So you kind of stay a little bit on the surface. The big difference is with GenAI that besides the business, it's in our day-to-day life everywhere. Like almost everyone is working with a ChatGPT and using it. I think the interesting thing is if you talk about these kind of technologies which work with a lot of data, and you look a little bit deeper, and let's start simply with machine learning or data science, which was there for years and used in many different parts of the business. So the most important issues and the misunderstandings you had was really about things. What does it actually do? Like the concept of uncertainty. I built a model, and the model provides me a result, but it's just a recommendation. There's some probability behind it. And how can I actually apply this to a real business problem? So this is these issues were always there. They are still as well. What is a big change in this particular situation, as I mentioned before? First of all, the technology is pretty amazing, but the fundamental change is that it's accessible and understandable. And I'm like to bringing examples and from one of my former projects where one of my colleagues basically we started to talk about, or one of my clients, we started to talk about GenAI, and then he said, well, I asked my son if he knows about it. And he told him, well, I'm working with GenAI for the last 2 years and writing my homeworks with that. So the big difference on this technology is that it's present and people actually understand, can use it. They can imagine something behind that. This was much more difficult with traditional machine learning, which you have still a lot of statistics and understanding. So I think overall good, but it's still obviously, as with any of these technologies, more on the surface.
Yeah, so it has been easier for business stakeholders to conceptualize, but I've also found that the hype often hasn't equaled the value. Hype versus value is probably down here, and business leaders see the shiny tools and they want to invest immediately. Do you think it's starting to level off now that we're a year or two into the the weekly updates from ChatGPT, and then the competition that's come in and try to better them.
So I think that this hype with these new technologies, it's always there, and like I'm already lucky to be in this industry for several years already. And you saw something similar with, if you think about big data and Hadoop clusters and all that stuff came in 7-8 years ago. And all companies were investing in that, and they believed big data is now solution for everything. Then the next iteration, it got a little bit more on data science and machine learning topics. And like for the first time starting to talk about AI, but it was already a kind of a situation where you couldn't really see what is the value, how can I apply? But there was a hype, I invested, I did my proof of concepts, I work on the project, and then it slowed down a little bit. Now, exactly the same situation. And as I mentioned before, the critical difference is that actually now even the business leaders know the first 1 or 2 use cases. They actually know how they can apply it. Everyone will be thinking about, let's say, a chatbot at the beginning, or they will be thinking about summarization of the data. And I think that this really changed. The hype is there, and the hype will definitely go down. I'm absolutely sure about that. But this slight thing which is slightly different, as mentioned before, people can imagine something behind this, so it's easier to find some of the use cases. It's easier, but it's still a long way to go.
Very good. Yeah. So less misconceptions, because we can imagine them. What are the misconceptions that you see or hear about from your peers? Your peers at leadership level within the business about GenAI and the shiny tools, for example.
So look, the misconceptions will be always there. So I think the key is expectation management. So anything like it's probably not really a misconception, but it's like the way what it can do. And now if you see all the shiny demos and the shiny examples, and you work a little bit with ChatGPT, then you get the perception that you can solve anything with that. And you see it very often from the business leader saying, can we do something with the AI here? Like, there is a problem, like maybe just do it with ChatGPT, or like the misconception, what it actually can do, that it's absolutely there. So even if you understand, you can imagine something behind that. So this misconception, I think that's the most important.
Yeah. Business leaders will say, can we do it with AI? And often the answer is no, because they're making those requests with the lack of domain knowledge that their counterparts in data or AI have. So how important do you think domain knowledge is to being able to create these solutions for the business and create them with quick business impact?
And I think now we are coming really at the bottom of the whole discussion we also had before. So for me, the combining the business knowledge, the domain knowledge with technology is the key to success. And if you ask me what are the biggest misconceptions or challenges at the moment the teams have, it's exactly this. So it's exactly the ability to find the right use case, which is providing the value for my team, for my organization. And it sounds like it sounds very simple, but everyone can imagine something like, as I mentioned before, you have the chatbot, or you can summarize something. But how does this thing actually generate value for my team and for the company? That's the key question. Summarizing a text from my text or my chat in Teams, it's great. It may speed up a little bit what I'm working on, but this is not going to be giving me like the massive push in the organization. The massive push and the massive improvements will come if you can combine the domain knowledge with this kind of technology. You build a recommendation engine which boosts your sales. In sustainability, you do the recommendations to save GHG emissions. In in financial planning, you have forecasting models which allow you to do a better asset allocation. So you need a real business use case which actually provides a value. And this is only possible if you understand the domain. And I think this is really where it actually, this is actually the key challenge. And this is why the hype usually then go down a little bit. Because people, they believe they can do everything, but then they take a step back and say, well, how can I actually really apply this in the business? Which problem am I solving, which is going to change something? So for me, absolute key to make the whole journey successful.
And to have that strong connection with your domain experts being data science and machine learning experts.
Yeah.
Well, let's go into that then. How important are data scientists and ML engineers in this? Could you tell me about where these teams should be located in an organization?
Yeah. Well, it's a bit of a, like, two questions. So the first one, the role of the data scientist. And I again, from my previous job in consultancy, so what we've learned is, and especially if you're selling data science services and building these solutions, you need to understand that your job as a data scientist or a machine learning engineer is to use data to create value. And if you do this in business organizations, this usually means top down, bottom line. It's really a top line, bottom line. It's like direct or indirect impact, increasing revenues, decreasing cost. So there needs to be an impact. There's people doing fundamental research, which is obviously important. But once you go a little bit more to the industry, once you're more on the business side, this generating value becomes important. So this is the role of the data scientist. And obviously, it's also about understanding how you can do this with data, educating the company, improving decision-making process. But on the backdrop of all these activities, create value, create measurable impact. Now, where should this sit in the organization is probably the one of the biggest challenges I've seen from the organizational design in data very recently. I personally believe it needs to be close to business as possible. But this is also difficult because these are technical. Data scientists are usually very, very technical. So it's just people who need a technical background. You want to exchange with people who also have data science background. So many of these teams actually started in the IT organizations, building center of excellences. And what happened, what I've seen very, very often, is that you built your team, you started working on some use cases, but these use cases, because you were lacking the domain knowledge, were actually not generating a value. Like I've seen like hundreds of thousands of euros being invested in email classifications and a sentiment analysis of some customer complaints, which is like unproportional to what you actually the money you invested is the value you get out of it. So in the second step, what happened is that the center of excellences in the IT started hiring people who actually built the bridge to the domain. So you created a team, you put it in the IT, in the tech, then you realize, damn it, I'm missing something, I'm missing the domain knowledge, so let me now find people who actually build the bridge. And my natural answer to this is that I would be fine with seeing center of excellences at the beginning of the journey. But very, very, very fast, you need to move close to the domains. Seeing maybe the data scientists being directly integrated in the product teams, having people who guide them from the technical point of view and who kind of a chapter leads and ensuring that everything works on the same platform. But the actual data science knowledge, the actual data science skills should, in my opinion, be very, very close to the domain.
You mentioned about chapter leads. You mentioned about potentially having a center of excellence there from the beginning. If a business is to set this environment up from scratch, what do you perceive to be the best journey to make the most from adopting AI or generative AI as part of your business function?
So, this I've been thinking a lot because there are pros and cons for both sides. So, I think it also depends a little bit on the size of your organization, but let's assume you're just trying to again, like a medium-sized organization trying to set it up from scratch. I would still be in favor to, if you don't have any data science AI talent at all, I would still be in a favor of pulling the small team of the people together and give them the chance maybe to build the foundations and have a very, very close exchange when you're building the first product. So in the first step, having the smaller center of excellence, I can still imagine this could be a good start. But as for me, for sure, the next important step is that all these guys in the center of excellence start working very closely with certain domain teams to learn the knowledge and to be able to apply these models on real business problems. And don't get me wrong, I don't want the data scientists and AI experts to become experts in marketing or in financials. That's not the point. It's more about that you are in such a close exchange with the product owners, with the domains, that you understand how the data model looks like, that you understand the questions which they are trying to solve. So I would still start with a small team as a center of excellence, but as you grow, dedicated teams which start work with the domains. Broader, you call it as a hub and spoke model. If you're from the consulting side, you would call it a hub and spoke model. You start with a small hub, and then you have small spokes which are everywhere in the domains, and they get bigger over time. My issue, what I've seen so far, is very often that organizations stop with building the center of excellence, and they don't build up the spokes. And this is where it actually then starts breaking, because you invested a lot of money, but you're still too far away from the domain. So I hope this answered the questions a little bit.
Yeah, I wonder, is that addressing the whole centralized data teams versus fully embedded data teams?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
So it is. So I'm a big fan of, because I believe that the future are embedded data teams. I'm just, that's again, so because I know this is to some extent a little bit, it's an academic discussion, but if you look a little closer, in most of the organization I work with, one of the biggest challenges, even before AI came in, was that the IT side and the platforms were just, as we said, too far away from the domains. And there is tons of projects and approaches trying to change the operating model to get them working closer together. But I believe that the solution is actually embed everything in one. I have a very, very thin platform, very thin tech teams, which are there to provide foundations, but everything else is embedded in the domain, just to make it really working on the value.
Okay. So what does that mean then for the center of excellence? Is the center of excellence something we start with, and then as we become more mature, we let go of?
Yeah, absolutely. And then what you can do, and that could be valid, that in the future, the center of excellence maybe change in something which is like a strong platform team, and a team which also is responsible for best practices, for example. Maybe the team which starts working on more fundamental research. So it could be still a smaller team which is there to hold the knowledge about AI and data science and machine learning, to hold it together. This I can still very well imagine, and makes absolutely sense. But it's a little bit for me, again, this is like the most important mind change is that the big value creation will not happen in the center of excellence only, or actually at the end at all. So the big creation will happen in the spokes close to the business domains.
So we understand the best case scenario, or potential best case scenarios, with centers of excellence then maturing to fully embedded data teams. what could lead to failure in that pathway? What are the risks we need to be aware of, basically, business leaders and data leaders?
So in terms of the operating model, I think the key risk we have there is really about the missing communication. What you see very often, and also one of the reasons why this journey is sometimes a little tricky, is that the domains and the tech people, they tend to speak a different language. They're trying to say the same things, but with different words, and at some point it leads a little bit to confusion. So if this cannot be fixed, then this is really one of the big risks, because then at some point the people stop talking to each other. And the natural reaction, and there are usually then two, and if you look at a big organization, they will have two possible reactions. One reaction is, I'm not going to do anything with AI or with data science because I just don't understand it, I don't believe it. And the other option is, I'm going to build my own team, which then will be completely detached from everything else which is happening in the organization. And you can do this, it's fair, but there are still some synergies to have an exchange with the other teams, to have the similar best practices, to work on the same platform. So if you don't fix this communication, this is by far the biggest risk that you don't succeed. And the second big risk is that you don't have a process to find correct use cases for your particular domain. And also there, still used to be still a fan of design thinking approaches, like finding the right use case, starting with the pain points, and have someone there who helps you to translate how AI actually can be used to solve this pain point. So if you're missing this, that's from my point of view, the from organizational standpoint, the big challenge.
Okay. Communications breakdown, that's another topic. Oh, it could be another topic in itself. It's a big area that all businesses struggle with in pockets, and that's very much a human element. Process, interesting that you emphasize there having a process to find the right use cases. That I would have thought that the use cases present themselves naturally. Teams have problems, they have needs, we go to those teams, we, like a business analyst, would go to them and go through a discovery process. Is there something more than that, or is it just being sure that we have a process?
Well, it's a little bit more than that. So I think identifying pain points in the processes, this is what most of the organizations are actually very good at. If you would discuss with, and if you go in a mature organization and ask them, so let's go in the finance department, can you just give me the biggest pain points of my processes? They will have all the stuff. They probably had multiple iterations trying to find the issues and prioritize them. When it comes to data and AI, the missing piece is that you need someone who can translate this into an AI use case. So I still am, and I used to be like a fan of the concept of analytics translator back then. I think now you probably call it like AI translator. But this is a role which can be played by the data scientist. It could be, someone a little bit with the skills from the both worlds, a little bit of business, a little bit AI, but someone who tells you, so look, I have an issue I think about concrete examples. So, I have issues with my planning of my cash flows for next year. And you need someone who tells you, well, you can run a certain level of time series models, which allows you to do an accuracy of 95%. And this is, even if it's not perfect, you will be able to improve your decision-making process like that and like that. So to build the bridge between the pain points you have and how can it be solved with AI, with the data, this is a challenging one. And usually also this is where you need experience. And I'm not surprised that there are actually companies hiring also specifically for this, because to build the bridge is important.
I wholeheartedly agree with you, and often those positions are patronized or underestimated, certainly in some cases. We've talked about the risks of failure, and there's another end of the scale, and that's the risk if it succeeds. And in my mind, the risk of success is what people's paranoia plays into a little bit. Somebody who has been around the industry, certainly consulted at a high level to numerous organizations going through this process, what do you consider to be the real concerns if businesses are able to fully adopt the next generation of GenAI?
I think it's a great question, and I like sometimes it's like fun thinking about this. So because we can only think the technology is very new, it's surprisingly powerful even for like many people in the industry. So that makes the discussion and the speculation about the risk so interesting. So I believe that one of the major risks we have when we talk about GenAI and large language models is that organizations will lose control over their own decision processes. So imagine you really start introducing agents for like many tasks, and then some of your ideation processes will be handled by agents, and it's still a technology which we 100% cannot really explain every single step and every single decision-making process, which is done by the AI. Now you rely in your organization on multiple of these AI agents starting the decision. So to some extent, you might be losing control. And I was on the Microsoft AI conference last week in Berlin, and the CEO from Microsoft, he mentioned that he sees the future in talking about like how we can control AI and these agents and validate them. And he mentioned that use AI to validate the output. I'm a little bit defensive on this. So this scares me a little bit because we are having a very powerful technology, which is very new. We are not 100% able to explain every single decision process. There is still obviously huge research going on in the explainable AI, especially when it comes to large language models. And then making them basically the gatekeeper, I'm not 100% sure if it's the right approach. In Czech, there is a saying, I'm not sure if it's in German as well, to make the goat the gardener. And it feels a little bit like that. So, and for me, this is by far the bigger risk for organizations, that we lose control over our own decision processes. So if there's one, I would pick that.
Very interesting. Just to stop on that a moment, did he explain himself? The AI agents managing or validating, as you say, the AI, or the AI agents safeguarding us against the AI. Did he explain it further? I'm guessing he did.
This was a very short note, so if he explained that, I cannot rephrase it. But this is something but this is something you see often. It's like even if you talk to many startups out there and you ask them, like, explain me how can you give me some confidence of your decisions, which are driven by by the recommendations which are driven by the LLMs. And one of the first suggestions is always, well, we can ask again our LLM how confident the LLM is about the decision. But knowing that you have the quite significant potential of hallucinations, this can also go badly wrong. So this there are other ways how to do it, and there's again significant research on how to make this explainable and how to actually measure the confidence. But we should be very careful, because with this technology, because it's so easy to use, we as a people, we tend to just give the responsibility away. It's like if you have a great employee, you just give him the responsibility and you say, oh, he will take care of it or she will take care of it and all will be good. And we tend to do the same with AI now. And this is a little bit dangerous because we don't really have a full control and understanding. And if we then let this technology control the technology itself, it can just simply happen that it will be recommending something in our financial processes or in our sustainability calculations, which will be just awfully wrong. But everyone will be trusting it because it makes sense. And then we realize at the end of the chain, oh, this was wrong. So I'm a little bit, so this is the risk I to be honest, see a little bit that we need to be careful.
Yeah, okay. I wonder, I'm with you, and I probably have a little bit of the worry as well. If we are truly giving over control to AI in its fullest, and then the leaders, our business leaders in AI are telling us this is how it will be, and then we have another group of leaders, Elon Musk being one of them, suggesting that we need to safeguard against this happening. I wonder if responsible AI or explainable AI go some ways to helping us kind of pull back a little bit.
Yeah, clearly, and I think you see it in the we talk a lot about organizational design today, and having these roles in the company will become standard. Like I'm absolutely sure that all major companies will introduce responsible AI representatives, AI safeguards, teams which are really focusing on this. It will be a natural process because the more the more responsibility you give to these models, the more you will need to be able to report on and be sure how the decision actually were made. And with the responsible AI, there's a completely different pattern on top of it. So it's really like there's a tons of risk related to it. Like again, this is I think for another longer discussion. But among other things, so a few things like just decisions which are let's say against mankind to some extent. So it's exaggerating a little bit, but racist comments, racist policies written by the AI within the organizations. But also if you, for example, make a decision which on the other hand might significantly increase the impact on the environment. So there's a lot of things which we need to safeguard, like what these decisions are actually, what's their impact on the outside world, on the organization. And I believe like this layer will in the next 5 to 10 years become absolutely normal part of the of every company structure.
Interesting. That's helpful to understand. We are almost out of time. I would like to perhaps get a summary from you in the form of what you believe data leaders can do to help bridge the gap between tech and the business application of GenAI. And I'm sure we'll touch on most of the topics that you've already shared, but what should be focused on for business leaders to bridge that gap between business, tech, and GenAI?
So the key job of the data and tech leaders needs to be to understand the KPIs of the business side. Like if there's one takeaway, then it's this: understand why are you building this, understand why are you trying to solve this pain point, and how are you going to generate it. And this is, in my opinion, really the build the bridges to. It's not all about organizing meetings and things like this. It's about talking to people to ensure that your team can talk to the other side. This is absolutely critical. If there's one thing, then it should be. The second thing is, I think it will be a lot about education, and it still is a lot about education. I think the data and tech leaders need to educate the company what is AI and what is not AI, meaning how it can help, but also what are the risks. And the third one, something we haven't talked about too much, but for me also to make clear that at the end, AI is the data is the foundation of for anything what we do. What we do is AI. So you need to get your data under control and needs to be in high quality, and it's people who are using it. So it's a technology which is between data and people. So you should not forget it. So it's just you're not doing just for the sake of technology. You are doing it on the data of your organization, and you are doing it for people. So even if this also sounds a little generic, I think this connection is also very important. Like don't forget that you need a good data to have the foundation, and don't forget that the end user is someone is a user, and the good and bad things will have an impact. So I think this would be the three things I think we should take away.
It always comes back around to data and people. Great.
Yeah.
Recognizing the power and the presence of those two endpoints. Education, something that we're constantly working on. Self-service analytics is a big enough topic for businesses. And then understanding, like with most business things, understanding your why. Fantastic. Michael, I really enjoyed that, and we got way carried away. So thanks very much for making it.
Thank you very much.
An immersive conversation. And where can people find out more about the work that you're doing? Or if they want to talk more about this topic with you, where should they go?
So I think the easiest way would be on LinkedIn, obviously. And I'm sorry if I'm answering too late. Sometimes I just forget that. And overall, I think best way to contact, or just drop me an email, or michael.soucek@gmail.com. But I think on LinkedIn you will see a little bit of history what I was working on, and if you have any questions, I'm always happy to chat. If you want to share your experience, or if you want to disagree with me and tell me that what I'm saying is a nonsense, feel free to do so.
Fantastic. Okay, we'll leave it there. Thanks, Michael, and see you next time.
Super. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.